Dear chess friends, welcome to your Art of Chess channel and welcome to one of the most spectacular games from the computer chess rating list website, the amazing CCRL. We have here Caissa versus Stockfish 16 in a beautiful accelerated London system in which we'll see again the fish battling it out against this unpleasant setup with the black pieces, but this game is so spectacular. Here you witness a beautiful queen sacrifice as opening theory in the London system. In my opinion, really one of the best games so far that I've seen played by Stockfish with the black pieces. So let's start with the game with the white pieces. The Caissa engine will open with move d4. We have knight to f6, and now comes the accelerated London system with the move bishop to f4, which is a very unpleasant opening to handle. And now after move c5 that Stockfish played, we have now the move e3, fixing now the structure, and Stockfish goes now into the normal plans against the London system, this motif c5 queen to b6 in order to support the further d4 progress here and also to attack the opponent b2 is, I think, a very often played line by black, but now here the Caissa engine prepared the sharpest line with the move knight to a3, basically inviting here the queen to take out the pawn on b2, and then with knight to b5 or knight to c4 the queen could be endangered, and then there are some nasty tactics with knight to c7 and similar stuff. So the game is really tactical from the beginning, and I really don't want to now dive into too much opening theory, and I really don't want to show you what happens if that happens, but you can expect that something wild is going to happen if you accept the challenge, if you pick up now the pawn on b2, and that's exactly what Stockfish does here. Stockfish takes the pawn on b2, welcomes this tactical approach of whites, welcomes this tactical battle in an early stage of the game, and put your seatbelts on and enjoy now in really this spectacular battle. So after move queen to b2, now comes this idea, knight to b5 with the immediate fork idea on c7. Stockfish protects it with knight to d5. We have a3, very nice idea in the London system from white's perspective, taking this natural square for the queen to escape, and now the queen doesn't have this escape route, so that's why first of all a6 by Stockfish, kicking away the knight. Now Caissa played rook to b1, decoying the queen of course to the square a2, and now after move queen to c1, basically the queen is trapped now on a2, but that's exactly what Stockfish wanted to get here. Stockfish simply took now the knight on b5. Here Caissa played rook to a1. The queen is now trapped. You don't have even good squares. Even if you play here queen to b3, this is not working because after c takes b3, of course, the queen is taken. Here the queen also cannot get here because the bishop is covering the square. So everything is messed up here. The queen is now paralyzed. So that's why Stockfish has now give up the queen for the rook, and now after queen to a1, let's stop and evaluate a little bit position. So Stockfish gained a pawn and the rook and the minor piece for the queen, for the lost queen, but has, I think, here a very nice approach on the queen side. Has here the possibility to create maybe a 3 versus 2 pawn majority attack, which is, I think, a decent choice, and also with my ideas maybe e6 to hit simply the pawn on a3 here. So Stockfish, it has now a clear object, is of course the weak a3 pawn. Stockfish continues with a very aggressive method e5, and this is the way they go. If you want to play this line, e5 is must-know theory, because if you play knight to f4 here, this wouldn't be so good, because after e takes f4 you could maybe try to rely, as I said, on your pawn majority attack, but now after queen to b2, hitting here the pawn on b5, you could maybe try here, I don't know, e6, but now this pawn will be taken, rook to a3, and now with bishop to c4, I think white gets out of this mess. White is not so endangered anymore. Black doesn't have support with these pieces, so in my opinion this is a much better continuation now for white. So that's why from queen to a1 here you have to be aggressive, and the most aggressive way is to play the move e5, simply forcing now white to react. And many things can go also wrong here for white. For instance, if you play bishop to e5 immediately, then the problem is c4, and you see now this pawn on a3 becomes now a weak pawn. Queen to b2 would be then the must line for white, and now things are getting very complicated. This wasn't played in the game, but there are some games in the database in this particular line in which white took with the bishop on e5 here, and this approach with queen to b2 is so far okay. You're hitting the pawn on b5, but actually black has really brutal tactics here. Pay good attention. So first we play rook to a5, which is really crazy. You're leaving your knight unprotected on b8. Really wild stuff. And there is even one game in the database in this particular line, really wild stuff. Dr. Starke against Gaetano Laghetti, in which black destroyed white in this opening sequence. From rook to a5, let's see what happens if you play bishop to b8, then bishop to a3 hits the queen. The queen has to be careful where to go. Of course, if you're getting somewhere where the queen can get forked, look at this, it's very crazy. For instance, you get here knight to c3, you have to step back somewhere with the queen, and now after bishop to b4, the queen gets again endangered. The queen gets on b2, we hit the queen again, you have to again play with your king, and now for instance rook to a2 is very nasty to handle. Look at this, we're threatening the fork on c3. You could maybe escape here to c1, not now. Bishop to a3, hitting the queen further. Again, look at this, b6 is even an opportunity. This game becomes so wild. b6 is very important because it's not allowing here to king to escape maybe to f3. Then you get this one, bishop to b7. Really wild stuff. Now after kingside castling, look at this, you're trying to escape with your bishop f6, then this other rook is coming into the game. So if instead of king to f3 you play f3 here, it gets even wilder. Again, we attack simply the queen, and now the knight is coming into the game here on b4 and hits here the square c2. So this is simply brutal opening line. So as I said, after move bishop to e5 that you could play c4 is really a huge threat. Although this knight is hanging on b8, as I said, we can simply create madness all over the board here on the queen side. I don't think that white is satisfied with the outcome of this particular line. So in my opinion, this is not working. So let's go back. After move e5 that Stockfish played here after d takes e5 was played by the Caissa engine, but now Stockfish makes progress with move knight to f4. If you play c4 now too early here, then again queen to d4, very nasty to handle now for black. The queen gets centralized, and I think white could eventually defend this position. So that's why first knight takes f4, after e takes f4, now c4. Now if you go with queen to d4 here, then knight to c6 is very unpleasant again to handle for white. This pawn will be taken, the rook is coming beautifully into the game again. I think white is facing many tactical problems, so this is not working. So that's why I move c4, queen to b1, hitting again the pawn on b5. Stockfish continues with rook to a3, and now maybe even the first inaccuracy by the Caissa engine. Caissa got a little bit tricked here, simply took now the pawn on b5, and this is not good because the queen gets again endangered by the activity of blacks. A better choice was simply to push the pawn here on g4, maybe then later to play something like bishop to g2, king to f1, escaping with your king, trying to get out of this mess with your minor piece. You have to develop somehow here, you have to be fast now in development. This whole concept with queen to b5 is not working because Stockfish shows now the power of this line with knight to c6. And what to do here, let's see. First of all, the obvious sidelines with the move bishop to c4. This wasn't played in the game, but of course we want to be curious what's going on after bishop to c4. Now it gets devastating. Look at this, bishop to b4. You play something like, I don't know, king to f1. If you get, of course, your king on e2, then there is always this nasty fork with the knight on d4. So you have to play king to f1. Now look at this, rook to a1. We're hitting the king again. If you play like this, as we said, simply the fork is working. So in the beginning, you have to maybe play here king to d1, but again this check, again you get here, and again you get the beautiful fork. So if you play here queen to c4 after move knight to c6 that Stockfish played, of course if you play queen to c4, then again bishop to b4, you have to again play somewhere with your king on e2. Now you play castle, and this is really crazy. After castling, and for instance you play knight to f3, then d5. d5 would be the brutal move. Let's see if you ignore the move d5. If you play queen to b5, the problem is now you don't have better squares. All of the squares are taken for the queen. So you see, let's see, maybe the only square that's possible without taking the pawn, of course. We'll see also the line if you take the pawn. Then the issue is here, this one, rook takes f3. After g takes f3 or king to f3, doesn't matter, the same thing happens again, this fork on d4. So if you play here queen to d5 instead of queen to b5, then it gets crazy again. Look at this. Bishop to g4, pinning the knight on f3. Now you maybe can attack it, but now bishop takes f3. You have to pick it up now with the g pawn. Now this other rook is coming into the game, and now look at this. Rook to d2, you get here, and now rook to a1 is winning here the game for black. You get even checkmated. So even this is a possibility. So this is really crazy. After move knight to c6, as we said, you cannot pick up this lonely pawn on c4, which is really crazy when you think about it harder. So that's why here c3 was played by the Caissa engine, trying to maybe even stop somehow the progress here, try maybe to avoid this annoying check with the move bishop to b4. But Stockfish continues now with the move d5. Let's see again what happens if you play queen to d5. If you play that, then we have here rook to c3. Again, you get endangered. The bishop is coming into the game. I think in this whole preparation by white, you cannot pick up pawns here. You have to develop your pieces. You have to get them back into the game. You don't have time just to grab some pawns. So that's why here the Caissa engine played knight to f3, although probably again the whole idea maybe with the move g3 or g4 was better, because then you're getting your bishop out and maybe you could search, I don't know, maybe for escape route for your king. I think this move g3 creates more breathing spaces for your king. Now after move knight to f3, it seems to me always like this knight is now also standing in the way here for white's king to escape, so white's king cannot escape. So that's why Stockfish first of all delivers a check. You have to play now king to e2, rook to a2, a new check, and now here the queen gets endangered. Again, queen to b1, b5 by Stockfish, and Stockfish is showing now its basic plan here to somehow create here this pawn majority attack that we have discussed in the beginning. So it becomes now, I think, a one-way ticket here in black's favor. Knight to g5, we have b4. This is the way to go. We have e6, bishop to e6, knight takes e6, f takes e6, but nothing dramatically changed, I think, in this position. The structure is healthy here. We have the supported attack here on the queen side. The bishop is out of game. The king has lost the privilege of castling. We have here the bishop's activity. Maybe we can castle, also include the rook into the game. So many tactical opportunities here for black. In the game g3, finally this move, desperate try here by Caissa to get back into the game. Bishop to e7, bishop to c4. Again, desperate move, but even if you try here, as we said, bishop to g2, then the problem is now this one. Bishop to f6, you cannot pick up the pawn because of rook to a1 winning sequence here by black. So it's not working. Bishop to c4, as I said, desperate try here by the Caissa engine. D takes c4, we have this one, c takes b, knight takes b4, and now king to e2, c3, pushing the pawn further. We have queen to b3, knight to d5, keeping everything compact, everything glued together. Okay, there is one check, but doesn't matter. Here after a couple more moves, Stockfish simply castled. Caissa attacked the pawn, but again, a beautiful counter-attack here by Stockfish. Never ever allow here white to breathe, never to allow white to get back into the game. We have queen to e6, king to h8, and now after queen to e4, rook to c5. Stockfish supports now the passer here on the c file. Look at this. The rook is protecting the knight is protecting the bishop. Everything is, as I said, compact, really firm together. After move of rook to c5, rook to c1, bishop to f6, protecting even further the pawn on c3, king to g2, rook to c1, h3, and now Stockfish simply push the pawn further. Here after move rook takes c2, what of course Caissa hoped for is to get the knight without any compensation, but Stockfish first sacrificed the knight for the pawn. After queen to f4, now Stockfish took the pawn, and it becomes now really bad game, especially of the weakness on f2. We only need now to line up both of these rooks against the pawn on f2 with the support of the bishop. This is game over for white. So h4, we have rook to f8, queen to f5, rook to d2, and after queen to c5, rook from d to d8, and after queen to c2, in this particular position, the Caissa engine resigns. So we can of course support further the attack. We can attack the queen. We can also attack the f2 pawn. I think white can defend this position for, I don't know, 10-15 moves. I really don't want to show you now what happens if that happens, but I think the targets are clear here. First of all, the f2 weakness, also the queen is endangered, and the problem is black has simply too much material for the lost queen. 2 rooks and the bishop, of course, against the queen should be much better. So, great game by Stockfish 16 against the London system. I think this is useful. I think you can maybe study this line, study also many sidelines, because this could be useful as a surprise weapon in your preparation. Probably many of your opponents will play this poison pawn variation in which they leave this pawn on b2 unprotected. Maybe they know some lines, they're trying to trick you, but I think you can counter trick them with your own ideas. That's why we love to study, of course, this top engine games, because they're giving us new insights, new opportunities, new creative ideas, I think, in openings and sidelines of openings. So this is a perfect example of that. I think this game can be really useful in your preparation against the annoying London system. So, okay, if you want to see even more sharper games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.